Yo, what is going on, YouTube? Hope you guys are doing fantastic today. Today is SPL review day. It's Friday. The game's starting in about an hour, but here it is, a short little catch you up. However, we're going to change it up this week a little bit. We're going to make it a little bit different because the other videos were really long, and I think that was a negative. The shorter videos, like 10 to 15 minutes, where they're really bite-sized, you can just skip to your favorite team and then just like see how I feel about them. We're instead going to do short power rankings really quickly and then just talk about their games, talk about how they looked, what they need to improve on, just stuff like that, or just whatever I feel like I want to talk about with the teams. If you'd like the other format more, where I just go over everything really in depth, let me know. But let's just jump right in. Let's start with number 8, the Solar Scarabs. Last week they played the Dragons 0-2. Bolts 0-2. Not a great week for the Scarabs. Fortunately, they kind of just got rinsed 4 games. They had a little bit of fight back. Game 2 against the Dragons, a little bit of fight. Game 1 versus the Bolts. But Game 1 versus the Dragons, Game 2 versus the Bolts, they got absolutely stomped. It wasn't close. They also got news that Slaney is no longer going to be coaching them. He got an offer to play with to coach the Titans, and he accepted that. So Scarabs are now without a coach too. Just another change, another change to the clock, the ticking clock that is the Scarabs. They didn't look very good this week. Last week, they actually had some fight back. They had some really good plays. Their comps made sense. They didn't really have a ton of stuff going for them this week, especially that Bolt set. Like, you thought they had a pretty decent chance against the Bolts, but they just did not look too good. Hoping that another week under their belt, maybe they can find a coach that can help them a little bit. Number 8, Scarabs. Number 7, Oni Warriors. An absolutely atrocious week by the Warriors. This was supposed to be kind of like, not a gimme week, but this is supposed to be like one of their easier weeks. They play the Bolts, they play the Titans. They didn't have to play any of like the top 3, 4 teams even, and they did not look very good at all. They got stomped by the Titans. They got stomped because they lost 2-0. Some of their games were pretty close. They just kind of looked like they were the Bolts of old, or the Warriors of old. If you remember, like the Warriors from last year, where they really didn't do anything early game. They would hope to get to late game and then hope to out team fight you. That is kind of how they looked. They weren't really playing around Nika to get Nika ahead. They weren't really playing around Vote to get Vote ahead. They were kind of just playing the game and hoping to not lose, and that goes for almost all of these games. Their one win against the Bolts, they looked like they kind of wanted to make plays and stuff like that. But overall, they just had a really bad week. They didn't look great. Dardes and Vote looked like I don't want to say they looked bad, but I had number 1 in my power rankings. And then they kind of just didn't show up. Unfortunately, when you only have, this is like the second half of a round robin, you only play these teams once. So losing to the Bolts, that's going to mean a lot. Losing to the Titans, that's going to mean a lot. Titans is like kind of that mid-tier team with them. And if you can't beat the Bolts, you can't beat the Titans, you're going to have to be moved down all the way to 7th place. It might seem like a major drop because I had them actually a lot higher, but you have to be able to put away these lower end teams. Number 6, the Bolts. And we're placing them higher than both the teams they've beaten because I don't think there's still any reason to put them any higher. Specifically, their set against the Warriors. They actually look pretty solid, bar game 1. Game 1, they just came out. They were looking really sluggish, really slow. Jake was getting picked a lot. They really weren't doing too much. They were kind of just losing the game slowly. Actually, game 2 is the one that Jake was getting picked a lot, and they still ended up winning that game. But game 1 was just a really slow game. The Warriors kind of got to farm. They got to late game, and then the Warriors just won late game team fights. But after that, the Bolts started getting Barra Soul, and Barra looked fantastic on Soul. Then was having a really good week on these Hunters. And this set against the Scarabs, I already touched on a little bit, but it was a pretty big blowout for the Bolts. Like, they looked like they were a tier above that Scarabs team. If this Bolts team plays like that, where they play, Barra plays smart and well and doesn't really look like this weak link that I felt like he was in the first part of the round robin. If Jake gets these pressure gods, or just gods that he can just do stuff in the early game, he looks a lot better. Then, even though he lost his beads a few times in fights that didn't really matter, and he kind of just got relics forced for no reason, he was still doing a lot in team fights. His positioning was really well, and he was getting off a lot of damage. And then to touch on Laz, because I think Laz is kind of like their do or die. And we'll touch on Baskin and Laz at the same time, because they're kind of grouped together a little bit. They both had a very, very good week. Baskin almost looks better than Nika at most times. And then their set against the Scarabs, they kind of just ran down Sam and Scary. But the Bolts, number 6, a very, very good week for them. Number 5, the Dragons. Now, the Dragons had a rough week. I actually picked them to beat the Dragons in the Saturday game 1, or set 1 of Saturday. They didn't look bad. They just looked like the Dragons kind of, I don't want to say got lucky, but it was like a back and forth. Either team could have kind of won. I think the Dragons maybe were a slightly better team, but I think it was rather close. And then you look at their set against the Valks. In game 1, they kind of got stomped. It didn't look particularly close. And then game 2 showed up, and it was them stomping the Valks. And I was like, okay, I mean, game 1, they started a little slow. Game 2, they stomped. So now game 3, they're also going to stomp. Also, touch on game 2. Captain Twig on Naja looks fantastic. He had a game earlier in the year where I was like, maybe he doesn't play Naja. Maybe he's not very good at it. And then I saw him in this set and I was like, holy cow. Okay, he's nuts. And then game 3, I mean, kind of game 2 also, they were kind of just camping variety and there was nothing, no response really from the Kings. Harry was like 0-3 or something in game 3 at like 5 minutes or something like that, 10 minutes. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was 0-3. And there was really no response from the Kings. So either you got to like have Harry play a little bit smarter, not dying as much. Maybe the Mulan is the problem. It's not safe enough. Either way, I'm not too worried about the Kings, but losing to the Valks, a team that is considered like a bottom 3 team, is going to move you down in the rankings because you got to, like I said with the Warriors, you got to be able to put away these lower end teams. If you're playing the Bolts, you're playing the Scarabs, even the Valks, like you got to beat them. Number 4, the Valhalla Valkyries. And why not? Why not the Valks? Starting off with their set against the Levi's, there was actually some positives to take away. The early game, they actually looked really good. Unfortunately, the Levi's, just superior team fighting in both games, just kind of won them both of these sets. The Valks had some good plays that they made in those mid to late game scenarios, and they almost came out on top. You could kind of tell that this Levi's team, though, is on like a different level right now, and you can't really expect a team like the Valks. You're still trying to put it together. I think they put a lot together, but I don't think they're on that level of the Valks yet. I mean, of the Levi's. But there were some positives to take away from that set. Then you go to their set against the Kings. These guys looked really, really good. I know we just talked about it because the Kings are the lower team than them in the power rankings, so we just kind of touched on them. But this Valks team looked really, really good. The plays they were making, Gamma, Kirmi specifically, Kirmi. If Pegon wasn't having such a great year, Kirmi, 100%. Rookie of the year. He is looking very, very good. That Dodge G is going to have to be a ban or something. Maybe somebody's hoping for it to get nerfed so they don't have to play against anymore, but Kirmi looked really, really good game 1 and game 3 against the Kings. Game 2, obviously the stomp. The Kings just absolutely blew them out. But the Valks, they have a lot of stuff that they're gaining, and they're looking better every week, and that's all you can ask from a young team. Number 3, the Tartarus Titans. I put the Tartarus Titans 1 above the Valks because in their set against the Levi's, I think there was slightly more positives to take, and that's really the only comparison we can have in the second round robin. I don't say dismantled the Warriors, but they pretty handily beat the Warriors. I think the Warriors looked kind of outmatched, underwhelming. So props to them for beating the opponent that they should. And even coming into this, I had the Warriors as the better team, but the Warriors just did not look up to par with the Titans. The set against the Levi's, the Titans definitely had some positives. They were getting some wins here and there, and I think they look like more of a team than the Valks do so far. I think if they were to play today or next week or tomorrow, whatever it is, I would slightly favor the Titans. I also think that with the change with Stu, I think they're still kind of putting it together. Interested very much to see where these teams go with it because they both had those 2 really big changes. Cyclone dropped from the Titans picking up Stu, and then the Valks just being a brand new team to the league, still trying to just one-up their performance every week. But Titans, number 3. Number 2, Jade Dragons. Really no surprise. It's going to be hard to move them out of the top 3-ish area until they actually drop a set, other than to the Levi's, who's the number 1 team, obviously. Who could have guessed? But they dominated the Scarabs. We talked about it with the Scarabs. It was not particularly close. They looked like just like a major league team versus a minor league team. And then their set versus the Kings. Their games that they won against the Kings, it wasn't like they were running away with the games, but it kind of felt like they were in control. I know I'm kind of just saying the opposite of what I said with the Kings, where it felt like the Kings could win, when it really did feel like the Kings could win at some points. But there's also a lot of points where it was like, the Dragons aren't going to really lose this game. Like, they're kind of just slowly just dominating this game. Hard to put the Dragons not at 2. Pegon's looking fantastic. Scream's looking like a number 1 player in the league. Fine OK is looking like a number 1 player in the league. And I want to touch on it. Fine OK is probably one of the best players in the league right now. Because he plays solo lane, I feel like he doesn't get as much credit as like the junglers like Scream or Pegon as a mid laner. But I really think Fine OK is one of the reasons this Dragons team looks so good. Number 1, Atlantis Leviathans. They did play the Titans and they played the Valks, the number 3 and the number 4 team, and they dominated. Like, going 4-0 against a top 4 team, 2 top 4 teams is incredible. Even if the games are a little bit closer, 4-0ing over a weekend against very, very good teams is incredible. They didn't drop a single game. Didn't really look like they were going to drop a game in either of them. The Titans had some positives. The Valks had some positives. But the Levi's just looked like they're on a completely different level. It is giving you like remnants of last year when going into this phase 3, the Levi's just kind of like hit the overdrive. Like Zap stopped dying when he was kind of like by himself, or like in team fights. If he did die, the game was just over because they were just wiping. Chinto is just playing like an absolute genius madman, getting farm wherever he can. Panatom, who's probably my MVP so far this year. What he does for this Levi's team, I think Scream is a harder carry than Panatom in most games. I think what Scream does is phenomenal for the Dragons. But the amount of farm that Panatom loses still to Shinto and the amount that he does with how little farm he has, or like when he makes plays, it's bonkers. It is absolutely bonkers. Just looking at this past week, like Panatom is just another level. And then HADDIX. Maybe I underrated HADDIX in this solo lane tier list because I gotta move HADDIX up. I probably gotta move him above solo and Nika. We'll do it even right now. Like it's gotta happen. We're also gonna put Nika below solo because he had a really mediocre week, and I think solo actually played pretty well. We're actually moving HADDIX to number 2 in solo because he looked so good. Probably can even make a call for Ronnie and PBM to move up and GenX move down. But we won't get too hasty. But I do want to firmly say that HADDIX, I underrated him. He played phenomenal this week, and part of the reason that the Levi's look so good. But there it is. There's my my power rankings. I was going to say my Levi's. This is my power rankings for week 5. Got another round robin portion this weekend. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys leave a like, sub to the channel. We're almost at 10K, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you guys like this more or you like the other one more. I'm fine with either. But you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See you. Peace out.